Um, as usual, first of all, we will listen to the findings of the IREPAS committees, and then we will have a Q&A session. I will be directing some questions, and you are also more than welcome to direct all your questions and let us have all your comments on any of the issues. Please, as Mr. Chairman mentioned yesterday, we are looking for your participation, comments, and questions. So, shall we start with the Raw Material Suppliers Committee?
So, yesterday we met. I'd like to first of all thank you for the invitation here, and it's always nice to be able to sit in a forum like this where we can listen in on the full supply chain of the industry. And I thought the yesterday's sessions were very enlightening. Anyway, yesterday afternoon at the Raw Material Suppliers Committee, we had a few findings which I'll try to summarize here with you today. First of all, scrap always tries to find a home, and even during such times as we've had in the past period since the last IREPAS meeting, during that period we've of course seen price reductions on most of our raw materials, and but scrap has found places to go anyway. And during the period we've seen some added demand in the Arabian Gulf sector and the Indian Peninsula, as well as the Turkey. So we're not being as it's not been as concentrated to single markets as we've seen before. So perhaps the markets are distributing a little bit. Of course, in Asia, the alternatives to scrap has depressed scrap prices and demand for the winter period. The domestic supply and demand situations in the United States during the winter, it's been tough with the winter situation in the north area. So collection of scrap has been depressed, and on top of that, price reductions has likely led to about 15% reduction in collection, just the price reduction, and then the winter on top of that. So with that has come less scrap generation, but the demand in the United States may also have been affected by the lower demand in the gas and oil sectors. So it's balanced pretty okay. In the European markets, the inflows of material has also been subdued somewhat, but the demand in the European area has been relatively healthy for the past months, and so the demand and supply situation is a little bit different. The European currencies and the euro in particular has moved weaker and is acting as somewhat of a protection for the area. So domestic demand in Europe seems to be quite healthy at the moment. In the CIS area, the Ukrainian export quotas are very erratic and difficult to understand if when and how long the export availability for scrap are there, and when they are issued. So it's difficult to trade, and the Russian steel demand is, I mean, the steel production in Russia is okay. So the with the weaker ruble comes a stronger Russian domestic production. So export material is a little bit subdued there as well. And we talked a little bit also about the overcapacity throughout the supply chain, which we all heard through the whole day yesterday. And it seems that all of us are suffering from this, from the mills to the mines and to the scrap collectors. And when it comes to the scrap collector side, it's clear that we'll likely see a period of consolidation or and some closures of sites that are not profitable, because most companies have sites that aren't so competitive at the moment. So we'll likely see within the European and the United States areas collectors consolidate. And yeah, for sustainable futures. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. So next in the line is traders.
Well, since the pricing, no, he has to turn it on. Okay. Well, since the pricing of our reinforcing bars and wire rod is driven so very much by the scrap price, we talked a lot about scrap. We probably should have been on your panel too. So anyway, yes, we talked about the ups and downs in the scrap market and the downside or the downfall of the iron ore price, and then we talked about the various regions, markets that we serve. Overall, it's not as positive a picture as it could be. Not much has really changed from our last meeting in Berlin. To put it all into a nutshell is since the Chinese producers of long products are shut out of major markets, such as in North America, they go to wherever they can sell their goods, and that in the end has depressed the pricing quite a bit. The one bright spot seems to be the North American market. I can speak about that for a second. Everybody thinks that the North American market is strong, and I think by comparison to Europe and other markets, we are indeed in a market situation that is not too bad. Competition has increased, of course, but at least the demand for rebars in the US, despite all the problems with the harsh winter that you referred to, Jens, is not too bad. Just a short word about what Jens talked about, the bad weather condition in the northeast of the United States. Last year we had the same situation, and last year was a huge impact. Our GDP fell, the demand fell. This year the weather was equally as bad, in my opinion, but we didn't feel it quite as bad as it was last year. Steel demand did not fall off the cliff. We will probably hear in a few weeks that our GDP didn't grow all that much, but all of that means there will be a pent-up demand in the second and third quarter. So overall, we were relatively optimistic as far as the US are concerned. We have some new entries again, old entries, new entries. On the wire rod side, the Ukrainians can export to the US again. That will add a little bit to the mix. The Ukrainians also signed an association agreement with the European Union, so they can export into the EU with duty preferences. So that will probably change the picture a little bit, though a number of traders pointed out that in the European Union there is a grand total of 26 certification requirements that they have to go through, and that won't be all that easy for the time being. The Ukrainians have made inroads in the UK for wire rods, and it remains to be seen through how many processes they can go to qualify in other markets. There are some bright spots in Africa. We also talked about, which is very close to our heart, about currencies. You referred to the weak euro. That has certainly changed the picture a little bit, and I consider this a positive thing. For us as a trader, I mean, the depreciation of the euro meant we have more supply sources. Suddenly, some European mills came, I don't know who, but there are some mills that are coming into the picture now. At the same time, we see other countries fooling around or changing their interest rate to depreciate their currencies. We've seen it, I think we even seen it in Turkey. I know we've seen it in Canada. So I'm afraid that the world may plunge into a currency war. But by and large, the euro exchange rate to the dollar right now, for us as a trader, for us as an importer, is a positive thing. We talk, of course, a lot about China. You cannot get away from it. China has a global impact. They are going through their own crisis right now in China. They have less demand. They have stricter environmental laws that they have to adhere to. And quite frankly, the trade actions against China has changed the picture a little bit. From my point of view, it has changed the picture in the US. It has changed the picture in Canada. A, that they are not there, and B, because they are not there, so many other entries have entered our market there. So the sentiments were clearly the business is not all that good, but I think going into the future now, and I'm looking at it with North American eyes, we are not too pessimistic. The demand, as I said before, is pretty good, and we expect a healthy increase in our economic growth the second and third quarter, and that can only be helpful.
Thank you. And can we listen to the Producers Committee's findings too?
Yes, of course. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, here are the findings of the Producers Committee. I have to say that it was a very big, long table with a good number of producers joining. So it was a very intense and good discussion. We were happy to welcome a newcomer from Philippines. You're really welcome, and you contributed a lot to the meeting, to the committee. Okay, what I'll do is I'll first go to a short summary, and then I will deploy myself more in terms of different areas, different producing countries. So the findings were that, and in line with what Bern has said, we see the markets growing, and this is a good point. This is obviously good for the business, because that's going to give us opportunities. On the other hand, obviously Chinese exports will still be putting pressure in the export markets, because the tonnages that are exported from China will not going to be, to put it nice, they're not going to be reduced by this year. So that's going to still be the part that's going to give us or put pressure in our business. And the third one and last one as a summary is that I think the big exporters will need to keep doing something that they have been doing, and we think it's the right thing, that is adjusting production. So market condition change, they move from one part to the other, and it is obviously one of our jobs is to find opportunities for our companies and to find good opportunities. But meantime, we have to preserve the margins, we have to preserve the profit of our company. So we know that one way to do that is adjust production. And this is something that has been, as I said, has been done in the past, in 2014, and it's now a tool, and we're going to keep doing that in the future. Okay, I'll now go a little bit area by area in terms of producing countries. Europe, as a summary, economy is expected to grow 1.5%. Construction business is turned the corner last year, 2014. It stopped to go down, it's now going up, and we expect business to grow 1.5%. And also a point that we were mentioning as a highlight was that, especially in the south, what has changed a lot the business is that the customers now, the customers that they have survived, they are now financially healthy. So, because until last year, it was not who you, how much you were selling, but basically who you were selling. So customers now are financially consistent, and that's obviously is making business much easier. We then, the representative of South America's producing area was presenting what was happening there. Brazil, we were talking about Brazil. Brazil is, at this point, is a market that is suffering a little bit because of political instability, uncertainty, and demand for steel is going down. As for 2014, the market definitely went down, and they don't expect a clear recovery until the political situation is settled. But on the other hand, there are other countries like other markets like Peru, Colombia, or Mexico that are showing good, strong performance, and they're expected to grow in terms of demand. As we mentioned the case of USA. Bern has been explaining how this is the situation. We see it in exactly the same way. Good demand there, or at least very reasonable demand. We then move to the Gulf area. In general, I would say the Gulf area, instead of oil price going down, the economies there, they got a very strong base, and they're expected to perform well in 2015, with Qatar growing 7% and still a lot of projects in the pipe, highways, Doha Metro, railway systems. That's going to come in 2015. The same for Emirates, where they're the most active the most active country there is Dubai. They are preparing the World Fair for 2020, so the market is still expected to grow in 2015. And same thing for Saudi Arabia, so good and healthy growth for 2015. 2016 is a little bit more, if the oil price continue at the level that it is today, they may see some adjustments in terms of budgets from the governments, but they don't see something dramatic happening there. If we go to Turkey, obviously the exporters, producers in Turkey, and basically their export business that they are always trying to do all around the world has been put in intense competition with the Chinese. And also they have been challenged by low demand in neighbor countries like Iraq, Syria, or Middle East because of conflicts, war, or political unrest. So the export of Turkey has been reduced in 2014, something like around 10%. And the Turkish mills have been adjusting, as I said, this is a tool now that we use, they have been adjusting production accordingly. On the other hand, the market in the domestic market has been behaving quite well. Turkey also is an economy that is the drop of the oil price is helping. is adding a good maybe 1% percentage on the GDP. So they expect that that's going to help them through 2015 to keep a good, reasonable domestic market, and that will help to maintain an acceptable level of production. In terms of exports, they are now concentrated on the US market as #1 market, but they are finding new alternative in Africa and in South America. If we now go to CIS countries, Ukraine, well, as a consequence of the conflict there, construction as one of the main drivers of the steel market in Ukraine has been down 20% in 2014, and production of steel has been down 17%, with exports also down 13%. They are now, in 2015, they expect maybe a similar figures in terms of total figures, so keeping the volumes the way they are now, and maybe obviously some mills that have been affected by the conflict in terms of supply of raw materials and things like energy or things like that. They are now recovering the channels, and they think that they may in 2015, if things keep like on the past weeks a little bit calm, they can recover a little bit production. They gave a figure in terms of billet exports. They are now at a level of 100,000 tons a month, and they expect to keep this level and maybe improve it a little bit, but nothing very significant. Russia. Producers in Russia definitely have moved more into the exports because of the domestic market being uncertain in 2015. And they expect, although they cannot be very precise on that because the economy now is a bit volatile because of the ruble situation, but they expect a drop in domestic market of about 10%. So obviously that will push, and because of the competitiveness of the ruble these days, they will push that into exports. So we will see something similar on what has happened already in last quarter of 2014. About the same level will be maintained in 2015. And as I said, and to finish our tour around the world, our colleagues from Philippines were presenting a very bright report about what is happening in the country. GDP in 2015 is expected to grow 7%, and this is based on an economy that is demographically is growing a lot. Correct me if the figures are wrong, but I think my note says that population now is about 100 million people, and it grows 2% every year. So there's 2 million Filipinos new every year. So this is a good production level, I would say, and that obviously is helping. That is the gasoline for a very brilliant economy and a very healthy economy. Construction is up strongly. As an example, they gave the figure that from 2012 to 2015, the rebar market grew from 2.8 million to 6 million. And in 2015, the rebar is expected to grow 35%. They pointed anyway that this is supplied domestically, and that new capacity is coming very ready to supply all these increased needs. So, and basically the industry there is based on re-rolling and buying 150,000 tons of billets. That must be probably a month. So, but new capacity is coming, new steel production is coming, so the country is a lot of investment there, and they expect the country to be self-sufficient to cover all these needs. So, as I said, this is the resume, and as I did the summary in the beginning, that's all from myself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, let me see what we have heard so far. Well, starting from with the raw materials side, I understood scrap supply was a little bit depressed due to winter conditions in the northern hemisphere and in the US as well, and we have experienced around about 15% price reduction in the US market, right? That's what you said, well, I guess.
As far as we understood that the price reductions that have been seen during the winter has led to about an average of 15% reduction in the collection rates.
Okay. Demand in the US has been affected by lower demand of energy and related sectors. In Europe, scrap demand was subdued, but overall the market was relatively healthy in the last months. The weakening of euro has acted as a protection for the market. In the market, on the CIS side, Ukrainian export quotas, I understood, were very erratic. Russian steel production was okay. The weakening of ruble has benefited and created some export opportunities. The production in Russia has also grown, as I understood. But on the raw material suppliers committee, expect that the collectors of scrap will be consolidated in the future. Listening to traders, I have understood that the one bright spot of the market was North America, and it is still North America. It is strong, but only by comparison to other markets. Competition is intense in the market, but demand is not too bad, despite the bad weather conditions and other negative issues in the market. Obviously, Chinese products being shut out of the market due to protectionist measures and so on has helped reduce the supply-demand imbalance. Excuse me. On the other hand, Ukraine signing a cooperation agreement with the EU, it might change the picture as it creates more opportunities for Ukrainian exporters. I have taken a note here that there are some bright spots in Africa. Going back to Europe, the weak euro has changed the picture a little bit, and the depreciation of the euro, has increased the number of supply sources in the market. Other countries, the traders think, are also playing with currency rates, and the world, the traders think, may have plunged into a currency war. But overall, the new euro versus US dollar exchange rate is a positive factor for the trading business. Looking at the Chinese situation, the trade actions obviously has changed the supply-demand balance in the market. Since Chinese products are not allowed to enter, certain Chinese products are not allowed to enter certain markets. There are a lot of other suppliers have found potential opportunities for themselves. And getting new business in the market. And from a North American point of view, North American market point of view, I understand traders are not too pessimistic about the future, which is a good thing. Listening to the Producers Committee's findings, there were three major main points that they have emphasized. First of all, the most important thing, I guess, producers see the markets are growing. Secondly, they expect Chinese exports to still keep putting pressure on the markets. And the big producers who have been adjusting production according to market circumstances are expected to keep doing the same thing, meaning adjusting their production according to the changes in the market situation, moving from one product to the other, one market to the other, or adjusting their capacity utilization rates, as far as I understand. In Europe, economy is expected to grow, and business is expected to grow by 1.5%. The most important thing I understand is that customers are now financially healthy, which is making business more possible. On the South American side, unfortunately, Brazil has been suffering a little bit due to political uncertainty in the country, and demand is going down because of that reason. And unfortunately, it is not expected to recover until there's an end to the political instability in the country. However, other countries, other markets in South America are expected to grow. North America, as we have already discussed, the producers also emphasize that there's a reasonable demand in the US market, which is the brightest spot as far as I understand. In GCC, despite the oil price, despite the decreasing of the oil price, the economies are quite strong. Qatar is expected to grow by 7%, and a lot of new projects are there, helping a healthy steel demand. There's a similar situation exists in the UAE market, where most active is Dubai, and market is expected to grow as well. Likewise, Saudi Arabian market is expected to grow, and if oil prices continue the same trend, there may be some adjustment, but I understand that will not be too dramatic. On Turkey, obviously, there is intense competition in the global markets between the Turkish suppliers and the Chinese suppliers, and the low demand in neighboring countries of Turkey, like Iraq, Syria, because of the political conflicts and the very well-known situation there. The Turkish mills have been affected negatively because of the low demand there. However, the production of those mills have been adjusted as exports are down. Domestic market is behaving quite well, and oil price, actually, the change in oil price is helping the Turkish economy. The mills in Turkey are concentrating more and more on the US market and finding alternatives in South America and Africa. And coming to CIS, Ukraine, the demand, the production, the exports have gone down because of the conflict there. Some mills have been affected very negatively, but they have started to recover gradually. In Russia, economy has been a little bit volatile, and it is still a little bit volatile. The domestic market is expected to drop by 10%, and capitalizing on weaker ruble, the exports are expected to be pushed more and more in Russia. And finally, in Philippines, 7% GDP growth is expected, which is a great thing. Construction is up strongly. Rebar market has grown from 2.8 million tons to 6 million tons, and this year it is expected to grow even further. The Philippines market, I understand, has been buying 150,000 tons per month of billets, but as new steel production capacity is coming up, the country will be self-sufficient in near future. Hopefully, I have been able to cover the findings with this summary.
I just want to be clear about it. When I said North America, that things are not too bad in North America, that means all three NAFTA countries, meaning Canada, US, and Mexico too. It's not only the US.
Thank you. My apologies for that.
No. I just want to make sure.
Okay, so once again, thanks a lot, Mr. Chairman, for your summaries and for sharing the findings of your respective committees with us. I'll be moving to the questions that we have received and prepared, but before then, are there any questions at this point of time from the floor for the chairman of the IREPAS committees? Can we have the mic? Yes, there it is. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Saad Roueli from Sabiq, Saudi Arabia. I have two questions actually. First question regarding to the scrap. We have heard kind of rumors that scrap ex-Russia might be banned. So if this happens, what kind of impact that we are expecting in terms of availability and price?
So, Jens?
Well, there's often rumors about scrap being banned from different areas, and we even have talk about the EU banning or imposing restrictions on exports of waste-oriented material, but in the end, normally the World Trade Organization stops this kind of legislation, which is good. So I don't expect it to be a reality. But we do have problems from time to time with legislation on like waste oriented material, for example, from the European Union to the Arabian Gulf is today very bureaucratic. So and it imposes difficulties for the European European area. So hopefully that will be straightened out as well.
Can we have the microphone? Yeah, you have it. Okay.
May I talk on this topic?
Please.
Especially concerning these rumors for banning scrap exports from Russia. This question is coming from time to time, and there are some interests that they are looking for such a decision, especially they believe that in case the scrap exports will be banned, the domestic factories will find better prices for the local scrap, as there will not be the export alternative. Finally, this is never coming, although it's included in different law projects, never coming to Duma to be voted. And in fact, there will be no influence on the price as the time changed. And now the Russians are producing, let's say, 30 million tons of scrap, out of which 26 are already going to the domestic market, and only 4 million are going for export. So we're talking about 10%. So this 10% were not going to influence the price in the domestic market. On the contrary, it may provoke measures from European Union to ban the imports from Russia and so on. So finally, we don't expect any kind of such a measure from Russia.
No. Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Jens. There was
second question.
Yes.
It's combining iron ore and scrap. Currently, scrap iron ore correlation is almost triple. So is there any room for the scrap to go down? And most analysts now, they are saying iron ore might drop to 50 or below 50. If this happens, will it drag down the scrap prices again?
I mean, this is the talk of the town nowadays, that the scrap, I mean, how low can iron ore prices go? And it's, you know, there's many factors in the iron ore pricing, and there's currencies of the producing countries. There's the freight costs with the low oil prices. The freight costs are low, and depending on the demand in China and how well they sell their products. So there's so many factors in the pricing of iron ore, and likely there's room for the prices to continue to come down because all these factors are playing a role in the price squeeze. So likely there's still room for the prices to come down, and the factor over for scrap over iron ore is still pretty high. So there's, in dollar terms, absolutely a possibility that prices come down, and the scrap prices are just reflecting the actual demand and so and supply situation. So depending on how well the material flows into scrap collectors, and that adds up with demand, that will determine the price. And but at the moment, it sounds like in the longer term, or for the year, that we're still in a downward trend, and I think we've been in a downward trend since early 2011, with, of course, some bounces. But in general, the longer term outlooks are still in the negative trend. So I still believe that there's continued room, although we see collection rates are hampered by the price falls already. So, and there are some areas where material is in tight supply already.
Thank you. Any other questions at this point? I guess I'll move on with the questions we have listed here. Obviously, scrap and iron ore, well, in summary, the raw material prices is a big issue right now. So I think it is quite normal that we receive a lot of questions on the raw materials side. This is actually, the first one is actually on raw materials once again. Similar question from a different angle. Let me read it. With London Mining and African Minerals going into administration in Africa, and Northland Resources and Dannemora Minerals going bankrupt in Europe, do you think iron ore prices will go down further to such an extent that even low-cost iron ore producers will not be able to survive the fall? Or will this ongoing fall result in an iron ore monopoly created by Australian miners, as the leading Australian iron ore suppliers keep increasing their supply to the global market as if they do not care much about the decreasing prices and margins? What would be the impact of such a monopoly on global raw material prices? I also would like to remind that Mr. Eric Luber yesterday, during his presentation, or when answering a question, he said that the strategy of the Australian miners, the major Australian miners, is to kill the competition. Would you agree with this?
I don't think that they're. I don't think that they're in the market to kill the competition. I think that they're just trying to make earnings, and to make earnings, either you have a high margin, or you have a high production and low margin. Now they're working on high production, low margin, so they're just trying to make money. And we still see a lot of projects in the mining industry on the way to production. And he also said yesterday that a lot of these new production facilities are too far gone to stop, and that they will add to the supply, and so likely we'll see more material coming on stream, and they're all trying to fit into the small window of demand there is, or the demand there is. So I think that we'll continue to see a high supply side for a while before a lot more smaller miners are slowing down or shutting their production. Most are expanding their production still.
I just wanted to add as well that, in general, from my point of view, the scrap price is really set by the well-being of this long product steel industry. And I don't think it's coupled too much to the iron ore price going up or down. Scrap price is going up and down, depending on the supply side and also on the demand side for steel products. Okay,
so the productivity of the steel mills.
Right.
Thank you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please stop me if you have any questions or any comments to add on any question anytime you like. So let me move to the next question here. This is for the traders, Bernd.
Okay.
With the ongoing oversupply issue, China is still a threat for the global steel markets. However, given the new, very strict environmental rules in China, it is believed that many small and medium-scale Chinese steelmakers may find it difficult to live with these new costs and may end up shutting down. Do you believe this expectation will provide some relief for the supply side, or should we be prepared to see even higher production volumes in China while the small ones disappear, with the big producers trying also to take the place of the small mills and obtain a bigger market share and increasing their outputs while benefiting from lower iron ore costs? Well, before you start answering, let me remind from yesterday a few comments made by Ralph Baltrush of Minmetals. He said that the investment required to meet these new laws is $32 per ton. And he also added that 70% of the Chinese mills failed to comply with the new environmental regulations. But he also said that he expected slow implementation and focus only on major cities with big population. So how do you evaluate this?
I think I do agree, and I abide by what Ralph said, because I mean he has a more intimate knowledge about the environmental aspects of Chinese steel mills. Will it change? I don't think. With 850 million tons, soon to be 1 billion tons of steel production in China, I think the Chinese mills will remain a threat, a formidable competitor, if you want. I don't see any change there. As their own economy is slowing down a little bit, they do rely more on exports. Yes, there will be some changes. Some smaller mills can probably not afford the $32 per ton extra, but in general, the Chinese steel exports will stay, and we will have to cope with it and compete.
Okay.
And take advantage of it sometimes.
That's a good point. Thank you. No comments at this point, so moving on to the next one. This is for the producers, Mr. Chairman. Also on China. Chinese exporters immediately replaced boron-added products with chrome-added products in order to keep collecting the tax rebate, obviously after the cancellation of the tax rebates on certain products, certain boron-added products. What kind of an impact have the chrome-added steel exports from China had on the market?
Well, I think technically, if we talk technically, for rebars, adding chrome or adding boron, if you do it in the right proportion, it doesn't affect the product. So it's in terms of rebars, they can continue to export as they did before. The only effect, and I think also yesterday was commented, is in wire rod. For certain grades of wire rod, especially if it is drawing wire rods, chrome affects the drawability of the product. So, on that sense, in drawing grades, it will affect. But in rebars, I mean, they will continue exporting as before. Yeah, no change.
Okay, I think you agree with this, Bernd, on wire rods.
Absolutely. From my point of view, there hasn't been a change ever since they changed the laws.
Okay. Next question is for the panel. It's a general one. Do you experience or foresee any problems in the financing of steel and or raw materials trading? Who would like to start commenting first?
Let me start, and then I let Kim wrap it up. We talked a lot in the years past about the credit crunch. I mean, I remember vividly that credit crunch was always at the top of the agenda and all this. I think, from my point of view, the credit crunch for financing steel trading and in general is over. I mean, there are possibilities. The banks are more willing to lend money again, not only for steel, but in general too. So I think that the financing for steel trading is available, but it has changed. It's not the same old paradigm that we had in 2008 and 2009. It has changed a little bit. We have to adjust to it. Banks are a lot stricter now. They ask more questions. But I think in principle, it's still a viable possibility to finance your steel to trading.
Yeah, and in terms of producers, I would say about the same thing, very similar. I mean, it's now, let's say the panic that was in the market, in the financial market, like 3 or 4 years ago, about steel business is over. Banks are ready, in a sense, to continue financing a steel business, but it's true also that it has come a new source of finance that sees, at this point in time, depending on the areas, steel business as an opportunity. But then they want to pay it as an opportunity. So you got the two options to choose. But yeah, definitely financing steel business now is doable. Yeah.
We talked about it in our committee yesterday as well, and a lot of the mills buying deep sea shipments to emerging markets are financing their letter of credits with deferred payments of something like 360 days up to these kind of time frames, and in dollars. So with weakening currencies in domestic and perhaps not being able to export so much, when time comes to pay those letter of credits, it's all of a sudden much more expensive for the mills. So and we're already seeing that now with Turkish lira weakening, for example, and Turkish mills not being able to export as much as they have before. They're paying more for the scrap that they financed. So could pose an issue for the future.
Thank you. Any comments from the floor or any questions? No. Moving on to the next one. This is also for the raw material suppliers. To what extent does the significant export decline during the last couple of years worry U.S. scrap players? Will the appreciation of the U.S. dollar worsen the export situation?
I mean, the potential appreciation of the U.S. dollar might be a factor in weakening of commodity prices, but the commodity prices and the scrap prices are going to be what they are, and the demand in the domestic markets aren't strong enough to take care of all the lower grade materials that are supplied from the coastal areas. So I don't see that the export situation will be much affected by that, no matter what the price situation is.
Only the demand side is important.
Yeah, the demand side will. I don't know. It will probably be still pretty okay. I mean, most mills will still be needing the material, and the demand at the mills and the productivity will be demanding. It will be depending pricing.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. This is for the traders. Despite the U.S. Department of Commerce ruling in favor of Turkish rebar producers last year, many U.S. rebar producers still insist that there is no way Turkish rebar mills can produce rebar as inexpensively as they do without subsidies or other unknown advantages. How would you address U.S. producers who believe this?
handled it, I would tell them. But anyway, yes, I mean, when we had the anti-dumping action against the Turks last year in the US, I think it was pretty much a victory for Turkish mills. They got hit a little bit. 1.6% in CVD countervailing duty for most mills except one. But I think it was a big blow for the American domestic industry. But at the end of the day, I think when the Turkish mills told me and told other people we are not dumping, they were right. You know, so and I think they had was a victory for them. It's an ongoing thing. So the domestic mills have appealed that ruling. Okay, so they have to be careful still. I mean, and then every year, even without the appeal, every year is a review, and the exporters or the domestic industries can ask for a review, and they will ask for a review, I guarantee to you. So, I mean, you just cannot ship willy-nilly to the US now. You still have to make sure that you don't dump.
Okay. This is also partly the answer of the next question. I guess in light of the continuing trend in rebar offers from Turkey to the US this quarter, do you think US producers will keep trying to petition the US DOC until they get a ruling they like?
They will. they will continue, yes. But I don't know if they get the ruling that they like. So.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. This is on currencies. Goldman Sachs foresees the euro at 0.95 to the US dollar within 12 months, and that it will plunge further to a record low of 0.8 to the dollar by the end of 2017. What will be the main effects of the ongoing weakening of the euro on the industry? Kim?
I guess this is for me, yeah?
Well, for anybody, but let's start with you.
Well, what I agree, I mean, obviously I'm not an expert to forecast what exact figure the euro will go, but we really think and believe that the euro will stay low in the at least for 1 or 2 years. So I think there's two effects, and obviously one is I think is good for European mills, but I think the second one is good for the industry, for the global industry. I mean, the first one obviously is obvious. With this, the steel mills, not only the steel mills, so the whole steel industry in Europe gets more efficient, gets more competitive, and at a point where in Europe, due to the crisis, the industry has done a very tough job on being efficient. So we have achieved levels of efficiency very high, and now with a low euro, we are even more competitive. So that's the first effect, and so European mills will be more present in different markets. But the second effect, and I think, as I said, is good for the whole industry, is that increased business, not only for steel mills but for steel industry in general, is generating growth in Europe, and that means that the consumption of steel in Europe will increase, and that's I think also very important, because that will create more demand in Europe, and then obviously the European mills, they will have the chance to export, but also they will have more demand in Europe. And that's going to be a double effect. That is the multiplying effect that is going to be good for the whole industry. So I think that's going to be in general good for the industry. Yeah.
But I still am concerned about not only the euro. I'm concerned about other countries are following. I mean, we heard from that doctor of economics from the Ukraine about the currency depreciation in Russia and in Ukraine, the hryvnia. So, I mean, they will have huge advantages because of the currencies. The Canadian Central Bank, about a month ago, caught everybody by surprise when they increased when they lowered their interest rate. And the Canadian dollar really lost quite a bit against the American dollars. For the Americans, that's a problem. Okay, so I mean, I don't want to exaggerate too much, but that the world is plunging into a little bit of, I don't want to say currency war, that doesn't sound good. Currency manipulations.
Yeah.
That's a real possibility, in my opinion. And that's not good.
But the more delicate definition.
Yeah.
I think we all learn from the Fed.
Okay.
I mean, the withdrawal of the quantitative easing in the United States saw commodity prices plunge, and added quantitative easing in the Eurozone is continuing to add pressure on commodity prices. So if we see 0.8 to the dollar, I think the commodity prices is going to continue to be in a negative territory.
And that's a possibility, 0.8, I mean, because starting in June, interest rates will go up slightly. That's what they keep on telling us. So as the interest rates go up in the US and quantity easing in Europe is continuing here, 0.8 is feasible.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, please,
just
Michael.
as a general comment that, for example, if you think of Goldman Sachs forecasting the dollar-euro, it's like the scrap dealers forecasting the price of scrap.
Nonsense.
Neither will get it right.
All right.
Secondly, if you look at the currency situation, that in the USA market today, hot rolled coil is about $100 more expensive than the European market. And the European market is about $100 higher than the Chinese market. And a lot of people forget that the Chinese currency is pegged to the US dollar. So the strength of the US dollar and the strength of the US economy is directly translated to the Chinese market. But if you look at the euro-US dollar at 135, then the European prices for hot rolled coil would be the same as the US prices today. Whereas when the euro was 135 to the US dollar, the hot rolled coil prices were higher by $100 still in the United States. So that shows you that it's really the demand for the product that is determining the price. Absolutely. And not the currency. So the currency is something that we watch, we talk about, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Any other comments from the floor? No. Moving on to the next one then. This is for the producers, and particularly, as mentioned here, a question for European steel market players. Are you happy with the austerity-based economic policies currently favored by the EU under German leadership? Were these policies necessary? This is a little bit political as well.
Yeah.
Or have they been harmful to the region's economy and thus ultimately been bad for steel demand and steel business in the EU? Does the page need to be turned? It might be interesting, if possible, to hear the views of players from different countries within the EU, from Germany on the one hand and from Southern European countries on the other. Well,
I'm part of the Southern European countries. I think obviously the first thing I have to say is that with austerity measures, a lot of people have been suffering a lot. So that's the first thing, that it hasn't been good for a lot of people. There's been a lot of suffer. But if you see the model on Weber based in 2007, 2006. Or the growing model for the countries in Europe, especially in Southern Europe, based in a lot of huge debt, based in absolutely no control on deficits from governments. I think that in a sense it was good to put a little bit of order in the system. Yeah. As I said, I said again that it was a pity, or it's still a pity that a lot of people are suffering. So, on that sense, it's you have to see both sides. But in terms of putting a more reasonable base in the let's say the management of the economies in the countries, I think it was reasonable to do so. And they put Spain as an example of that. I mean, Spain, in Spain, let's say purely technically, economically speaking, it has been good. But obviously, I mean, the bad part has been that a lot of people have been suffering huge unemployment and things like that. But I think that that has been good. Obviously, if we now see as a steel mill, I have to say that we have suffered a huge drop of our demand in Spain and in all southern countries. But that also has forced us to think and to change our model and to be more competitive. And clearly, we're going to come back stronger from that. And let's put it that the suffering has been good, or the suffering not has been good. The suffering has been obviously hard, but we have learned a lot from the suffering. And so, in that sense, you have to see the how or the implementation of this politics from both sides. So that's obviously if you are Greek, you think maybe different, because in Greece has been and you see the political result of that in terms of what has happening in the elections. In Spain also there are certain new political currents that are let's say capitalizing the suffering of people, but I think all that is going to be overcome, and in the future that's going to be good. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one from the floor? Moving on to the next question then. This is for the raw material suppliers. The European Commission published its action plan to safeguard the European steel industry a few years ago. It included some restrictions regarding scrap exports and additional monitoring burdens on the scrap metal trade. How has this plan been implemented since then? What impact has it had on scrap exports from EU countries?
Yeah, we discussed this point yesterday in our session as well, and it's been in and out of discussions within the EU, but it never really gets further than a discussion point. So we don't see it materializing into actuality, because we believe that the World Trade Organization wouldn't allow it, and or they would strongly oppose it. There is already hinders in the EU legislation of waste material, which scrap is classed under in the EU. So which already restricts exports from the EU in some fashion, and makes it gives burdens to the exporters and recyclers. So the burdens are already there, and I don't think that they will be going any further than they are, and perhaps they might not slow down either. But I don't think that they're going to go further. We didn't believe that in the session, but we were all hoping that the burdens for bureaucracy within the waste regulations will lighten a little bit.
Thank you. Any other comment or any different opinion on this one? No. Next one is on Russia. Before this one is for traders. Do you think Russia is also a candidate to become the next biggest threat in the global steel markets after China? I assume this is on this from a supply point of view.
I don't like the word threat, to be honest. But, well, let's face it. Russia, while not as big as China, of course, but Russia has a huge steel industry. They have a currency advantage now. Yes, of course, there will be viable sources. Russia will continue to export there. So they're exporting now. I mean, it depends on the region and on the trade laws. We've had a suspension agreement in the U.S. with Russia that has been lifted now. And also, I mean, it's going to be another free-for-all again. So the Russians have other considerations right now. They have some economic problems, but yes, they will export, and yes, they will be probably a big exporter, and not a threat. Okay, exports also present opportunities. So
sure. Moving on to the next question. This is for the producers. Billet prices have recently increased in the Turkish market due to supply-related problems. Can local billet producers compete with lower offers from the CIS and China? This is from a Turkish mill, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I would like if there's any Turkish mill here to comment, because I don't want to be...
Anybody like to comment on this one? I cannot see anybody
No
here.
Turkish colleagues here.
Anyway,
I don't
let's
make a mistake, sorry. Yeah.
Move on to the next question then. This was already discussed following the question by Sabik at the beginning of the Q&A session. Whether it was possible to ban these scrap exports just like the wheat exports. So moving on to the next one. This is for traders. Stagnating steel demand is going to be the major issue in the industry this year and probably next. Demand may even go down in China as construction demand weakens. Demand generated by energy-related projects is expected to decline worldwide. When do you think we should expect to see a turnaround in demand? Have you got your crystal ball with you?
Well, excuse me, the first thing I have to say is this question just points the negative points of demand. They are positive. I mean, I don't see demand globally stagnating. Yeah. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I do agree. I also want to refer to Michael with his answer or with his comment about Goldman Sachs not being able to predict what the dollar will be to the euro. It's very hard to say when the demand on a global level will turn around. As I said, maybe I don't see it right from my vantage point in North America, but I don't see the big crisis. Okay, so I'm not as pessimistic as the questioner is here. So when there's a turnaround, I think there will be a turnaround as the US is getting even stronger, as Europe, as the EU is coming out of their doldrums here and increase their GDP. I think, but I cannot give a time frame, no. But I think it's in my lifetime.
That was good. Any comments on this one? Yes, Michael, have you got the microphone? It's coming.
I think we all should be very optimistic. We had, when we were sitting around talking in 2011 and 2012, we were forecasting flat growth and so forth. In 2014, it was announced 1% average growth of steel consumption in the world, and that was 1% in China and 1% for the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about the rest of the world, going forward in our lifetimes, which we should all stay very healthy to enjoy, is that it was reported today in Platts that India has now surpassed United States in steel production. There's a tremendous upside in India, there's tremendous upside in the Philippines, in Bangladesh, and in the Middle East. And the investments, even though when you talk about energy-related investments, these are just like the energy-related investments or in the mining industry. These projects are something that are coming on, and they're not going to stop from one day to the next. No one's turning off the light on investments in the world, especially when we have near zero borrowing rates for corporations. I think the only concern is that who and where are we going to generate new ideas and generate ideas, generate energy. The low energy prices is a tremendous boon to the world economy. And I don't think that we have yet realized what that positive situation is for the rest of the world for 2015 and 2016. If the energy prices stay low, corporations are going to have more confidence to invest, and people are going to become more optimistic. So I see that 2015 may increase the steel consumption worldwide over 2014, because in 2014 corporations were investing based on high energy costs. Mm-hmm. And the steel industry does not live or die with oil pipelines. Mm-hmm. It lives and dies with construction and positive investments. So let's be optimistic.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question. This is on Middle East and for producers. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the flurry of construction projects in places like Dubai and the GCC has hit its peak? You have already mentioned about the projects, but if not, do you think oversaturation of construction will become an issue in those rapidly developing regions?
Well, for the comments of, I don't know if they want to add something now here, but for the comments of the participants in Producers Committee from that area, I think that the level of project development at this point in time in the area is really high, so they're probably at the peak, still good, and they may see a little bit of adjustments in certain countries depending on the behavior of the movements in the oil price. So we are probably now at a high top level, in that area.
Thank you. Any other comments? Maybe? No. Okay. Moving on to the last questions here. For the raw material suppliers, suppliers insist that scrap prices cannot decrease under a certain level because of the cost of collection. What is that minimum level, if any?
Well, I don't think there is a minimum level, actually. It all depends on the demand and the supply. But I mean, in 2008 we were down at I think $130 in Turkey, and from to $750 the same year. So yeah, anything between there, I think, is where the price.
It's a really wide range.
Yeah. I don't think we'll see any of that, either 750 or 130.
Sure. Okay, thanks. Next one is, once again, for the producers. Given the lack of supply-demand equilibrium in the international steel markets, what will be the best and safest option for steelmakers to survive in the market and maintain their profitability at the same time?
Well, I think you have to base your business in simple things. First, obviously, you have to try to be a low-cost producer, as you have to produce as efficient as you can. Then you have to evaluate very well what are your real possibilities in terms of markets. Have if you can, a good product and market mix in your portfolio, and then the most important thing is to adapt yourself in terms of production and volumes to the circumstances, and don't assume that tomorrow is going to be the same as today. I mean, today is today, tomorrow is going to be tomorrow, and when you get up every day, you have to see where you are, and you have to see, you have to adjust yourself to the new day. I think that's in a sense you have to be. It looks as steel makers, we are we are like big elephants, but if you want to survive, we have to learn to be big, agile elephants, and that's the main point, I think.
Thank you. Last two questions. This one is for traders, right? It was thought that consolidation would be essential for steel companies, but now it seems that protectionism is gaining ground on a global basis. Do you think it will be sufficient to keep domestic markets alive and safe? Even though this was directed to traders, please feel free to comment.
Well, do you think that we're supposed to keep domestic markets alive and safe? Well, I mean, the Americans have written a book on anti-dumping laws and how to go about it. It has helped the domestic industry, but it has not really stopped all the imports. I mean, we are still there. The traders are still around. We are still selling in the North American market. So I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't know how to address that. Life will go on. Yes, there are dumping suits. Yes, it disrupts the market. But if you shut off one source here, another source over there pops up. And we've seen, I want to go back to the Turkish example of rebars. If you don't dump, apparently you can win a trade suit. So, I mean, yes, we have to live with that kind of system, but it's not life-threatening.
Okay.
I think as a producer that, well, you have to, there is really sometimes fair competition and there is unfair competition. And so you have to be careful and you have to be very vigilant when you see, as a producer, when you see unfair competition. I think that you have to try to defend yourself. That's and that's, I think that's fair from a producer point of view. Yeah.
Thank you. And the last question here is kind of a sum up of everything that has been discussed. Let me read quickly. In the global long steel market, there are currently numerous negative factors exerting a detrimental influence on the demand side. Economic growth has slowed in China, impacting steel demand in the country. The sharp drop in oil prices means that oil-producing countries will have less money to spend on buying steel. Certain currencies, the ruble, the euro, have seen sudden drops in value, meaning that regions such as the EU and the Russian Federation will be less inclined to import steel. Informed commentators indicate the problem of ISIS is unlikely to be resolved in the short term, despite the current action being taken, and so instability will likely continue to prevail in the Middle East, continuing to disrupt steel demand there. The Russia-Ukraine crisis remains unresolved. Since the financial crisis, demand in the developed economies has never really recovered to the desired levels. Given the existence of all these factors, where are the bright spots in the global long steel market which might give us some cause for optimism?
This is a long list of nightmares. Well, how we do that? We do one each one? Or?
No, I just tell you, this is way too pessimistic. He said something there, since the financial crisis, demand in the developed countries has never really recovered. I would take issue with that. It depends on the industry, it depends on the items, but I hear all the time that certain products have reached the level or exceeded the level of the pre-crisis amount that we had. And whoever asked that, I would like for him to check the Dow Jones stock index. You know, I mean, it has growing. I mean, I think we have overcome the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. It brought changes. It's not the same, but I don't think that you can call it a crisis mode.
Yeah, and I think that for every point you have every point is written in negative, but you have a positive. I mean, if you take sharp drop in oil price, means that oil-producing countries will have less money to spend on buying steel. Yes, but that means that oil-consuming countries will have more money to spend.
We've seen a shift from producers to consumers. So
Yeah.
Producers of iron ore have been making money, and producers of oil have been making money, and now the shift is going over to the consumer side. So the consumers are making are saving money and are able to spend money. So I see very, very optimistic on the future for the consumer side.
Yeah, and I think modestly, because I'm not a specialist economist, but I think that if you move, let's say, the wealth of oil from one side to the other, I think that the multiplying effect that's strictly what I think. The multiplying effect in a developed country is bigger. I mean, if you take the money that a country save in oil in Europe, for instance, it goes to a good 40 million. If you take Spain, it goes basically to the 40 million people in Spain, and this is the multiplying effect of that is huge. So I think in that sense, again, this is positive. Again, the currency. Okay, obviously Europe is going to be inclined to import steel, but the European economy is going to perform much better. So that means that more steel will be consumed in Europe. So I think for each of these points, you have the positive reading of the situation.
No, I agree with that.
But in general, as Michael said, I think that we have to be positive. I mean, we are here talking about construction in China. What about cars industry? I mean, car industry in Europe and in United States is performing extraordinarily well, and this is a huge consuming of. You don't agree, Mark?
No, go ahead. I want to rain on your parade a little bit as far as the car industry is concerned. Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, we are near record levels, pre-crisis record levels in the car industry in the US. We are manufacturing a lot of cars, but I think it has come to light in the last few months that all of this is based on, we heard this before, subprime loans. I mean, what we did in housing a few years ago that caused this immense bubble in the US and everything exploded. We've done this to the same degree, lesser value, less in volume, and we've done it in the car industry. I mean, there were some reports that I've read that a lot of loans for cars, and nobody pays cash for cars in the US. A lot of loans for cars are pretty dodgy. Okay.
Interesting. Murilo, can we have the microphone for Mr. Osorio?
My voice will not.
It's coming. Help is coming.
Thank you.
I agree with Michael, with you, Keen and Bern. Yesterday, Magnus told us about innovation. We need to remember all the time that the symbol of IREPAS is the phoenix.
Yes.
We suffered, during the last 30 years, we suffered with different crises. I remember quite well that in one IREPAS we were discussing about the Turkish, and then about the Brazilians, and then CIS, Russia, etc. And then we survived it. In 2008, in New York, the steel success was talking about the global leaders of the steel industry. We're talking about 10 years of booming, okay? And after that, we know what happened. We are innovating all the time. Despite of such negative points, we always had positive points. It's part of the human being. We need to rebuild all the time. I'm very positive, even for 2015, despite of a lot of people told about 10 years of negative trends. It means if we consider 10 years from 2008, it would be 2018. But we need to be positive even for 2015, and then 2015 will be better than 2014, despite of the negative points. We just survive it, and then we will go further. That's for sure. Okay.
Thank you. Good point. You have reminded us all about the Phoenix. Thank you very much. Any other comments? No, I guess. So, I would like to thank you all, the chairman of the IREPAS committees, for sharing your opinions and findings of your respective committees. Mr. Jens Björkman, representing Raw Material Suppliers Committee, Mr. Bernd Neuenkirchen, representing Traders Committee, and IREPAS Chairman, Mr. Kim Marty, representing the Producers Committee. I also would like to thank Mr. Yanis Mimaroğlu, the former chairman of the Raw Material Suppliers Committee, for all his contributions so far to the IREPAS. He has handed over the chairmanship of the Raw Material Suppliers Committee to Mr. Björkman, starting from this meeting onwards. I also would like to thank all our distinguished speakers who have shared their expertise and information with us during the course of these 2 days. I also would like to thank all our sponsors, starting with our platinum sponsors, Qatar Steel, gold sponsors, Liberty Commodities, and then Belgian Scrap Terminals, CNF International, Yolbulan Baştu Metallurgy, and Akyapak Machinery for their unstinting support. As I have mentioned yesterday, the next IREPAS meeting will take place in Rome between October 4th to 6th of this year. Hoping to see all of you there. Thank you very much for all your participations. And once again, hope to see you in Rome.